Y'all's program today is Vanishing Wonders, and we will be talking about some of it a little bit depressing, but it's very important for everyone to know. A lot of our animals in the wild and here within the city are facing issues like habitat loss or fragmentation, pollution, litter, overhunting, or just over collecting for the pet trade. And we have a couple of different animals that y'all will get to see today that represent a lot of those different categories. So we'll go ahead and get started. The first animal is something native to Louisiana. Oh, you used the bathroom. Thank you. I know. So, first animal is a box turtle. These guys, native to Louisiana, we have them throughout the state except really the swampy areas. And they're really common in the pet trade. So people will go out who don't want to obey the law. They'll go out and collect them from the wild, which is legal within our state. Other states have different rules and regulations, but they'll go out, they won't listen to the laws because they don't care, and they'll just collect all of the ones that they find. And that's actually how we got Toy here. So if y'all can see this number that is written on his back, it's number 40. He was actually confiscated from someone who was hoarding them. So he was 40 of 200. So not very good. Obviously that person could not take care of all 200 turtles, so some of them did not make it. And his goal was to sell all of those guys. And Wildlife and Fisheries took them all, brought them to the LSU vet school. There were some that did not make it, and they were able to nurse back to health the other ones. And so that's how we got Toy. Because these guys have a really big homing instinct, so they know if you move them 3 miles away, that's not where they're from. So they will try to get back. And because of that, Wildlife and Fisheries didn't know where these guys came from, if they had been born in captivity or what. So they had to find new homes for them. So they weren't able to release them back into the wild. Now, some animals, it's not a super big deal if you over collect them from the wild or collect them from the wild. Box turtles are different though. So these guys, they don't reach maturity until 7 to 10 years old. And a lot of things can go wrong between then. So they do get eaten by a bunch of different animals. One of our other box turtles has teeth marks and is actually missing one of his legs because a raccoon tried to eat him. There's also issues with cars. They will cross the road, and this shell protects them from predators, but it does not protect them from a vehicle. So there's lots of things that can go wrong for them between hatching and before they can give birth or lay eggs. They can live into their 50s. Most in the wild, usually though, because of all of those issues, they only live about 20 to 30 years. So slow reproductive rate, they only lay 3 times a year, but only about 11 eggs each time. So that's not a lot of eggs. And things like raccoons and crows are known nestrators. They love watching a turtle lay or dig a nest, lay its eggs, and then they will go and just dig it up and eat all of those eggs. So because of all of that, having people go out and collect them willy-nilly without caring about the rules and regulations, that's an issue. And these guys are considered threatened as of right now. And I would guess probably within your lifetime, these guys will probably be listed on the endangered species list because of that. They are a species of interest. So there's quite a few international communities that are watching the sell and trade of these guys to make sure it doesn't get too high. So that is Toy. Our next animal is one from South America. And there you go. And he also kind of has a shell that people like to, they use these guys. Oh, he's sleeping. Oh, there we go. Good morning. Good morning. So his shell, not quite the same. This is Max. He is a 3-banded armadillo from South America, and they are hunted for their shell. They will often make drums out of them or just decorations and jewelry. It is very pretty, minus the hay. So they'll make drums out of it and little mandolins and stuff like that. They will also eat these guys, and sometimes they will keep them as pets. So because these guys also have a slow reproductive rate, they only have 1 pup a year, that can be an issue. And things like habitat loss. So these guys live mostly in the dry Chacos area, which is kind of like our Great Plains. And they are currently converting a lot of that land to farmland. So that's an issue because these guys do a lot of digging. You can see their nice big nails. They use those to dig into the ground to get different bugs, ants, termites, which you would think people would want these guys eating those termites. But they will also dig up your garden or your crops. So a lot of farmers don't like armadillos. So they will also kill them because they consider them pests. These guys right now are considered threatened, not endangered yet, but the U.S. has about 300 individuals in zoos, and they're doing that, and they have an SSP program, so the Species Survival Plan, because they want to make sure that when these guys, if and when their numbers begin to drop, we have a good captive breeding population, so we're able to, when they fix the issues, we can return them back to the wild. So these guys, really cool, but unfortunately, people don't like them. They consider them pests. Our next animal, I know you just want to run around now, is another type of turtle. There you go. All right, so our next animal is a diamondback terrapin. They are a turtle species. They are the only turtle species that actually lives in brackish water, which is not fresh, not salty. It's kind of in the middle. And they are called diamondback terrapins because of their beautiful shell pattern, which doesn't really occur too much anymore, but back in the early 1900s, they used to hunt these guys for their shell, and they would make jewelry out of it. So as you can see, very, very pretty. And it does make beautiful jewelry. They are still hunted for their fat pads, so for food. Diamondback terrapins are a pretty fatty species. This is completely normal. She's not overweight or anything. And it's a very juicy, succulent meat. So people still hunt these guys for that meat. But that is not their major issue. So JJ here is a female. She is fully grown, and females are bigger than males. And the males, unfortunately, often get trapped in crab traps because they're roughly the same size as crabs. So places not super big down here, we don't do a lot of crab trapping, but up in places like Maryland and Canada, they do. And so what they have started doing is they will put special excluders on those crab traps. So the males, which are about 3 inches, quite a lot smaller than the girls, the males can't go into those crab traps because they do require oxygen. They're not fish. They do have to breathe. And that way they are not getting caught or trapped in those crab traps and they're not drowning. So that's one of the biggest issues these guys are facing now. As far as habitat loss, there's issues with nutria or koi poo, which are doing a lot of damage, especially along our coast. They eat a lot of rhizomes, a lot of roots. They eat those roots everything starts to erode. So that is a type of habitat loss that these guys, terrapins and others, brackish water species, do face. So our next animal is actually a mammal that is common, but it is very important, and a lot of different animals actually rely on it. So I'm going to go ahead and put JJ up. Good girl. And our next animal, I'm going to have to step off and go grab him because he has a certain way of doing things and he doesn't like to stay still. So I'm going to go grab him. Good boy. So this is Spud. He is a black-tailed prairie dog, so that little black tail. These guys, common. One of his other names that we call him sometimes is actually Dakota, which means friend to everyone. And I am going to have to put him in his clear cart. So Dakota here, he goes by two names, Dakota Spud. Spud because he looks like a potato. Dakota, which means friend to everyone in the Sioux language of the indigenous tribe. And it's a very fitting name because Spud here is imprinted on humans, so he thinks he's people. And prairie dogs in general are a very important part of their ecosystem. So there are 5 species of prairie dog: blacktails, whitetails, Gunnisons, Utah, and Mexican. The Utah and Mexican species are endangered. The other 3 species are doing pretty well. And they dig very extensive burrows or tunnels, which are actually called colonies or towns. The largest was 25,000 square miles and held an estimated 4 million prairie dogs in it. Those towns and colonies are used by at least 170 different vertebrate species. So mammals, things like swift foxes and mice, burrowing owls, rattlesnakes, a bunch of different animals. And that's not counting all of the different bugs that live within those colonies or within those tunnels. So even though they're doing good right now, they did have some issues back in the early 1900s. So unfortunately, farmers and ranchers thought or believed that because they dug tunnels, they eat a lot of grasses, that they were out competing their cattle, and they thought their cattle were more important than a native species. So they actually started killing prairie dogs, either via poison or shooting them or releasing the dogs on them, and they didn't think anything of it until they started seeing, or scientists and biologists started seeing, other species have issues. So one species in particular was the black-footed ferret, which it only eats prairie dogs. So when the prairie dog numbers started dropping, so did the black-footed ferret. And without that predator, it also had the opposite effect, because once the farmers stopped killing or weren't as stringent at killing the prairie dogs, their numbers shot up because there was still almost no black-footed ferrets. Those guys, the black-footed ferrets, are doing better now. Back in the 80s, they actually thought they were extinct. They had been searching, hadn't been able to find them. And then in, I think, 1982, a farmer's dog actually brought him a dead one. The farmer was like, I have no idea what this is. Brought it to a taxidermist who was like, oh my God, I know what this is. And he brought it to Wyoming Fish and Game, who were just, oh my God, we haven't seen these in 10 years. We've been looking. We're about to declare them extinct. Where? We gotta find these guys. And so they went out, they collected the last 15 individuals up in Wyoming near a lake, brought them into captivity, and have ever since then have been doing captive breeding populations. There's a couple of different facilities that have them, and they, I want to say, have between 200 and 400 in the wild now. So that's a success story that was related to biologists saying, hey, we need to stop killing this keystone species, the prairie dog. Lots of things rely on these guys. So I know this program was a little bit kind of doom and gloom, but these are issues that all of our animals are facing, whether it's to a small degree, like the box turtles who are doing okay now, or to a big degree like tigers or rhinos. There's poaching, and it's not just other countries. We have this issue here in the United States as well. So if you have a favorite animal, look up how you can protect it or the issues that they're facing. It might be as simple as maybe don't purchase this peanut butter brand, purchase this other one because they cut down trees differently. But just look it up and try to learn. Lots of animals are having issues. And we hope to be able to see y'all in person very soon. Thanks. Bye.